Hello to everybody watching and listening, and welcome back to another Mechabellum video. I'm gonna start off with a cast of two games that I very much so enjoyed. This is the first one, and yeah, I said I didn't want to do too many casts, but I want to keep some games around that have been awesome enough for me to actually cast them. I'm starting with Marksman Specialist, and then Crawlers and Stormcallers, and my opponent starts with Sledges, Fangs, and he is Heavy Armor Specialist. So let's see how the first round turns out. Yeah. Personally, I think Sledges right now in the early game are absolute monsters. I can't really imagine what to do here that would make me win. I don't even really have a front line, so I decide, you know what? If I can't win the first round, might as well go in for some more chaff. In the long term, I would like to keep this marksman because, you know, having a level 3 marksman against sledges is not too bad, all things considered. The fight starts, and yeah, the marksman immediately being pressured by the tanks is not exactly amazing, to put it lightly, but some crawlers are coming in from the middle to support. Stormcallers in the meantime, not even too bad against these fangs, but without anything to really, you know, tank for them and take down the stragglers, Stormcallers really are just way too slow to deal with anything, and you can just, you know, it's not a secret how this fight ends. I'm killing a bunch more units, but that's about all. The enemy mostly wins this if memory serves, simply because sledges, they are not the best against Stormcallers, but they're also most certainly not the weakest against anything that's not a Scorpion or an Overlord or something like that. First round ends and my opponent gains a massive amount of experience on these tanks. I should probably disable the chat. Anyway, I go for shield airdrop because I think it's absolutely amazing. Immediately put that one down. And my opponent, I don't recall what he did. So I'm kind of curious to see for myself. I'm just adding more chaff right now. And my opponent picked the extended range marksman, yes. So now my opponent has an edge in marksman. Although with less damage, still is pretty neat. He's adding one on and yeah. So now the fight begins, or the next round begins, and I really wish this was easier to turn to one. My opponent of course ranked up these tanks. In theory the marksman can still kill them, but yeah, is he even going to connect? I'm really not playing these first few rounds too well. Maybe I should not have picked the shield and instead went for some sledges of my own. Finally, he gets to connect, but in the meantime, not too much of my army still survives, and there is once again nothing left to tank for the marksman. So, what do you think happens? Boom. And from here on out, the turn ends as you might imagine. Basically the same, not just that, but yeah, the shield is also getting absolutely wasted. I don't have enough firepower under the shield to make it work, so that was a complete and utter misplay on my part. I have to remember that I should only pick these shields when it's actually good, when I'm more or less winning. Next turn, maybe the turning point. Personally, I did not particularly like anything other than the Vulcan here for chaff clear. My opponent, on the other hand, what do you think he's going to pick? I don't remember myself, so I'm going to, you know, watch. He also picks the Vulcan. Okay, good. He's ranking up the marksman because this thing is still providing absolutely amazing experience points. He's adding in more marksmen. Meanwhile, I'm adding my own sledges because the situation cannot stand. So right now I have made multiple blunders and my opponent is very clearly ahead. He has the momentum. And in my opinion, it's all because sledges in the early game are just super amazingly powerful. Next round starts. Finally, I have some chaff clear. Woohoo! However, I probably should have put this one further to the inside so that this marksman connects on the tanks better. The things you notice afterwards. That said, the sledges are doing a good job. One side is completely breaking through, the other side is completely being broken through. These level 2 tanks are just extremely tanky, who would have guessed. My marksman is doing however much it can, but it's being pressured from the other side, and this thing is not that it could tank for that much longer anyway, but it's not tanking for the marksman. It would have been better on the inside. I need to remember that for the next time. I did not notice legitimately until the end of this or rather until watching this replay. Meanwhile, nothing is really going my way. Even this Vulcan stays alive with basically one Stormcaller salvo in the way of killing it, so that's 400 extra damage. Next reinforcements. What to do here? My opponent goes for intelligent arclights, because apparently carry marksman isn't enough, you also want carry arclights. I don't think that's the correct move, but he's thinking if he adds on tanks, I just go for more arclights, and they're good against the crawler, so I can't blame him. I go for skill specialist to drop another shield quicker, because this is overall, I think, a worthwhile investment. Having these shields around can be useful, but yeah. Let's just say it's probably not my best move either. Meanwhile, I'm adding in more tanks. He's adding in a couple of ranged arclights. I had it there. And then I turned it back. I probably also should have moved the shield further up front so that it does more tanking, but it's not all that important. Overall, this shield here probably was the false decision to begin with, and I'm just committing to it like an absolute idiot. Oh well. The fight is continuing. This time the Vulcan is getting stuck on the tanks, but eventually it is breaking through. Here is a Vulcan fight, but my opponent has the better damage support, so my line is being broken through once again. And if you think the shield's gonna stay alive, I think you are wrong. Meanwhile, this side is once again being broken through, and it looks like the Vulcan is going to stay around on a sliver of health once again. That sucks, to be honest. Oh? Yes, it's staying around for another turn. Sucks. Round number 5. Phoenixes. Scorpion. Wasps. I'm going for the Phoenixes because I need the DPS. The Scorpions would be nice, but they're not as good against the enemy chaff here. He just hits the shield button and suddenly that is a lot better. Meanwhile, I decide to hit the Phoenix plus tank button and just add in a ton of level sledges in a hope to soak up enough damage. My opponent also went in on the Phoenixes, and I don't think that is the correct choice. I think, personally, he should have picked the Wasps in this specific case, because look at this. What do I have to deal with Wasps? One marksman, and now I do have this many Phoenixes. But can they really do something against 4 packs of Wasps going in? Anyway, the round turned out like this. I now have a vastly superior front line all of a sudden, because I didn't have to spend any money on damage supporting my own units. And yeah, suddenly things don't look as good for my opponent. If you lose the tank war, you are in deep doo-doo. This is getting pressured. The tanks in the middle here, they are still alive, but now there's a lot of Phoenixes that can potentially work against him. And in the end, I think this round turned out to be a win if memory serves. He still has a bunch of annoying arclights in the middle, but now he has the tower debuff, or rather he is under the effect of the tower debuff, the tower degradation as I call it. I don't care what other people call it. What is it called? Paralyzation apparently. I think I keep forgetting. Anyway, this is a smashing victory, and suddenly just a better line of tanks and enough damage behind them. Who would have thought that tanks and damage would be a good combination? Yeah, you're right. Everyone who has ever played any kind of RPG, and MMORPG especially. Next round, I go for extended range sledgehammers, and I hit the mech rage button simply so that I can start hitting. He is hitting the top supply specialist. Round 6, certainly not bad. Maybe I should have picked it, but I wasn't really sure. I use my shield once again. Take a guess if it's going to stay. I don't even remember myself, so I think it stays, but I could be wrong. I'm adding more chaff. I'm leveling up these Stormcallers. These Phoenixes have levels now. The tanks, of course, now have 125 meters range. And that means that these Phoenixes with 120 meters are now officially further up front than my front line. If this sounds stupid to you, that's because it is. I am making multiple blunders in this game. My opponent, of course, is also not playing the best. After all, we're talking like 1250 MMR or something like that here. And this Vulcan is being absolutely torn to shreds. Meanwhile, these Phoenixes here, as long as the Vulcan's up front, it's all good. As long as some crawlers are up front, it's all good. But the moment this cover disappears, they are dead. That's it. There is not too much left on the board for my opponent. The last few Phoenixes will hopefully go down. Yes, that looks like it, because this marksman is taking care of everything. The Stormcrawlers are also dealing with the marksman. Hopefully, no, they are not. They are missing, and they are missing in a horrible way. However, the extended range tanks, remember, 125 meters of range. Meanwhile, his marksmen are at like 140 if memory serves, so that's just 15 meters difference between a sniper and a tank.